Okay, in this video, we're going to talk about some we can think of it as like useful um, properties of money. So think about, well, if something's going to be a good form of money, well, what properties will it have? So number one, this is a must. It needs to be acceptable. So we're thinking if we're looking for a commodity or something to be used as money, what does it need to do? So it needs to be acceptable to most people. So most people need to be willing to accept it, right? This is the most important thing. This is super important. So must be willing to accept it. So if people won't take it, it's going to be totally useless as money. If no one wants it, then it can't be used as money because money needs to be something that's acceptable to most people. So you take it, you're willing to accept it because you think other people will also accept it, right? So that's the most important thing. And over the years, there's been lots of different forms of commodity money. So, for example, the classic one was the cigarettes amongst prisoners. Also, cigarettes were commonly used amongst soldiers in some of the past wars. In the precious metals have been the case sometimes. We talked about in the intro, they was talking about the cowrie shells. There's also been things like in the American West, there was times when animal skins or furs were used to trade. They were sort of used as the acceptable form of payment. So lots of different things can be used. As long as they're acceptable to most people, then they can work. Another nice thing to have is for it to be standardized in some way. So if it's standardized, it makes the comparisons easier. It makes the transaction costs lower. If the thing you're using as money is not very standardized, then it puts a lot of cost on the two people involved in the transaction to kind of make a decision about, well, what's this equivalent to, how much is this worth, and so on. So, for example, in the case of like a cowrie shell, where they were actually quite uniform, even though they're not made in a factory. You can line up shells that are similar in size and consider those to be nearly identical. Then that's a very useful thing. It could also be done with precious metals. The problem with precious metals is that people tend to erode the quality. They tend to want to mix them with other things, and unless the person receiving them is an expert, it may be easy to get tricked. And so they will wonder about actually how standardized they are. So it's really good if it's something standardized, because then it makes the transaction really simple. You can just look at it and you go, okay, this is this thing, and I can just think of it as this. I don't have to evaluate the quality or anything like that. Third one, it should be durable. Well, because if your money is not durable, then the store of value function of money is very effective. So you get something that's not very durable, and yes, most people will accept it right now, and it's fairly standard. But if you can't keep it for a period of time, then it's only useful for transactions now, but you'll want to try to get rid of it as soon as possible. So if you could imagine using something like a tomato as a commodity money, well, it might be okay if people will accept it, but it's not going to be good at all in terms of storing value because it won't last very long, right? And it's not durable. So over the years, most of the things that people have used as commodity money are things that are fairly durable. Meaning, if you give them some basic degree of protection, they're not going to erode or lose their quality or the value. That's was the attraction of some of the precious metals, also the attraction of cowrie shells. The earlier example I mentioned to you of cigarettes and animal skins, both of those have a few problems with durability. I guess cigarettes you have to be quite careful not to get them wet, and animal skins could rot or something like this. So anyways, the more durable, the better. The fourth one needs to be valuable relative to the weight. So if it's not valuable relative to the weight, then it's going to be too much trouble to carry around. Now there are a few cases where people didn't actually carry around their money. The money stayed in one place. The story about the island of Yap is where they use large stones for money is an example of that. But generally, people want to be able to carry their payment power around with them so they can make payments. And if your form of money is not very valuable relative to weight, it's going to make payments really troublesome. Okay, because you're going to have to carry a huge amount of your money to do this. So, for example, if we used a commodity which is fairly standard like rice as money, one of the big problems with it is, well, it's not very valuable relative to its weight. So if you want to make a big purchase, you might have to spend a huge amount of energy bringing your money to the payment, to make a payment, right? So things that are relatively valuable compared to the weight, again, precious metals, cowrie shells, at least at the time, are fairly valuable relative to the weight. These are pretty good. Some other things become quite cumbersome because they're so large compared to the value that they have. And then the last one is divisible. So we make payments for all kinds of different size transactions. So you might pay for a pack of gum or a drink, and you also might pay for a new car or a house. And so these things are so different. So it's nice if our money is divisible. If the money cannot be divided into small units, then it may not be very useful for day-to-day transactions. And so let me give you an example of this. If we think of another asset that's not money, but another asset that, and say, well, why wouldn't it be very good, useful for using for payments? Well, think about houses. Let's suppose you try to use a house as money. Well, the two things, the valuable relative is weight. Well, it's not so much a weight problem, but the house is, you can't move it around, or it's not easy to move it around, right? And definitely can't move the land that it's attached to. And the second one, it's not divisible. So it will be a real pain in the neck to try to use this thing to pay for all kinds of small quantities, right? So generally something that's divisible is great. Again, that was one of the big advantages of the cowrie shells. It's a pretty good thing about precious metals and such. And it's our current form of money, called fiat money, satisfies all of these quite well. Okay, satisfies all of these quite well. Some of the other forms, they don't satisfy this quite as well, but our current form of money satisfies all of these quite well.